You didn't download it, you don't remember tapping install, and yet there it is, sitting quietly in your app drawer, an icon you've genuinely never seen before, sitting there like it's always belonged. And when you scroll back through your download history, hoping for some kind of explanation, it's not there either. No record, no timestamp, no trace of you ever choosing it, just an app that seemingly appeared entirely on its own, out of nowhere. And if this has ever happened to you, you're not imagining it, and you're genuinely absolutely not alone in this. Because this exact phenomenon has been documented across thousands of phones, reported repeatedly across tech support forums, community threads, and now confirmed through actual investigative journalism. And there are actually several completely different, very real explanations behind it, some relatively harmless and mildly annoying, some genuinely worth taking seriously and acting on tonight. And in this video, I want to walk you through exactly what these apps actually are, why they end up on your phone without you ever consciously choosing them, the real documented cases behind each individual explanation, and precisely which ones you should go delete right now before you go to bed. So let's start with the first and honestly most common explanation. And this one has been quietly happening for years, even though most people never actually learn about it until it happens directly to them. Carrier and manufacturer pre-installed bloatware. And here's exactly how this works from the very beginning. When you buy a phone through a specific carrier, whether that's a major nationwide provider or a smaller regional one, that phone frequently comes bundled with a small management app already baked directly into the system before it ever leaves the factory. Something with a fairly generic sounding name like an app selector, an app manager, or a games hub. And these aren't apps you consciously chose to install at all. They were placed there before the phone ever reached your actual hands, embedded directly into the system software as part of a private business agreement between the carrier and the phone manufacturer. An agreement you were never actually a party to, never asked about, and never even properly informed existed in any meaningful detail whatsoever. And here's the part that makes this genuinely frustrating for a lot of people. Once they actually understand it fully, these carrier management apps often retain the specific technical ability to silently install additional apps onto your phone later on, sometimes weeks or even months after you first started using the device day to day, without asking for your explicit permission each and every time it happens, treating your home screen essentially as their own advertising and distribution space, rather than something entirely under your personal control. And this isn't some rare, isolated edge case either. There are widely documented reports across countless user forums of people discovering entirely new apps, unfamiliar folders, and Games Hub icons suddenly appearing on their home screen that they never manually installed themselves at any point. Sometimes noticing this months or even a full year after they originally purchased the phone in the first place. And when people go looking for an actual explanation, digging through forums and asking other users who've experienced the exact same confusing thing, they consistently trace it back to exactly this kind of carrier management software quietly working away in the background the entire time, completely invisible to the average person, simply going about their normal daily routine. And here's the genuinely aggravating detail that makes this whole situation even worse. Some of these specific system apps can't even be fully uninstalled through the normal method most people already know and expect. Tapping and holding an icon and selecting uninstall, because they're technically built in as protected system apps rather than ordinary downloaded ones, meaning your phone treats them the exact same way it treats genuinely essential software. The operating system actually needs to function properly, even though from your own actual perspective as the person using the phone every day, they're providing you zero real benefit at all, just sitting there, taking up storage space and quietly retaining the underlying ability to install more unwanted software down the line whenever it suits whoever controls that specific app. And if you find yourself in this exact situation right now, there is still a real practical path forward available to you, even if it's admittedly a bit more involved than the usual single tap delete button most people expect and are used to. First, go into your phone's app settings and look for the specific carrier management app by its actual displayed name and see if there's an option available to disable it entirely, rather than trying to fully uninstall it outright from the start. Disabling effectively stops it from running or installing anything further going forward, even if the underlying system files technically remain present somewhere deep in your phone's internal storage. Second, if disabling isn't available as an option for that specific app on your particular device, search specifically for your exact phone model and carrier combination together, alongside the exact app name you're currently seeing on your screen, because other frustrated users have very frequently already documented the specific steps needed to fully remove that particular piece of software, sometimes requiring a specific setting sequence or a temporary developer options toggle you wouldn't otherwise know to look for. And third, and this is genuinely the most effective long-term fix, if this is a recurring, ongoing frustration for you personally across multiple phones over the years, when you're ready for your next phone purchase down the line, buy it directly, fully unlocked, straight from the manufacturer itself, rather than bundled specifically through a carrier's own branded storefront. Because unlocked phones purchased this particular way are frequently reported by users across the board to come with dramatically less of this kind of carrier bloatware pre-installed from the very start, giving you a noticeably cleaner, more trustworthy starting point right out of the box. Now let's move to the second explanation. And this one is honestly considerably more unsettling for a lot of people once they actually understand the underlying mechanics behind exactly what's happening on their device, Adware and Fleeceware apps that specifically install additional apps as their entire deliberate core business model, rather than as some kind of accidental side effect nobody intended. And I want to explain this clearly because understanding the actual mechanics at play here is genuinely worth your full attention. Some malicious apps, ones that typically got onto your phone in the first place, through a third-party app store operating entirely outside the official Play Store, through a shady website featuring a tempting free download button promising something valuable for absolutely nothing, or through a misleading advertisement specifically disguised to look exactly like a legitimate system warning telling you in urgent, alarming language that your phone is already infected and that you need to click here immediately to fix it, are built from the ground up around one very specific, deliberate business model, generating steady revenue by showing you an excessive, overwhelming volume of intrusive ads throughout your normal phone usage, quietly subscribing you to expensive recurring services you never actually intentionally signed up for in the first place, or in the specific scenario we're focusing on right now in this video, secretly installing entirely. Different apps onto your device, frequently additional simple games, specifically in order to spread further across as many devices as physically possible, and generate even more advertising revenue for whoever originally built that malicious app to begin with, treating your phone as nothing more than a tool for their own ongoing profit. And this specific pattern has become common enough over time that it's genuinely become a well-known and frequently discussed phenomenon within both cybersecurity communities and general everyday tech support communities, with people repeatedly waking up in the morning to find several completely unfamiliar apps sitting inside a folder they definitely didn't create themselves, deleting every single one of them carefully, only to have a handful of new, similarly unfamiliar apps take their exact place shortly afterward, sometimes within the very same day or even within just a few hours, which understandably feels deeply unsettling and genuinely violating the very first time it happens to someone who's never encountered it before. And if you're currently dealing with exactly this kind of recurring, frustrating pattern on your own phone right now, here's the specific step-by-step fix that consistently and reliably resolves it for people who've dealt with this exact same issue. First, reboot your phone directly into what's called safe mode. And on most Android phones, you do this by holding down your physical power button until the power menu appears clearly on screen, then pressing and holding the power off option specifically, rather than simply tapping it once the way you normally would, which will bring up a separate prompt asking if you'd like to reboot into safe mode instead of restarting normally. And safe mode temporarily disables every single third-party app on your entire device all at once simultaneously, which specifically prevents whatever adware is actually causing this ongoing problem from running or actively hiding itself while you're carefully trying to find and remove it from your system for good. Second, once you're safely inside that protected mode, go through your complete app list methodically, one single entry at a time, rather than rushing carelessly through the whole list. And delete anything you genuinely don't recognize, don't remember installing yourself at any point, or that seems even slightly suspicious given whatever limited information you do actually have about it. Third, once you've thoroughly finished that entire cleanup process from start to finish, reboot your phone normally back into its regular everyday mode, and the unfamiliar apps should genuinely stop reappearing from that point forward. Permanently, since you've now removed the specific underlying source that was actually generating them continuously in the first place, rather than simply treating the individual visible symptoms one at a time without addressing the root cause. And fourth, going forward from this point onward, specifically avoid downloading absolutely anything at all from third-party app stores. Operating outside the official Play Store, avoid clicking through on any advertisement that dramatically and urgently claims your phone is already infected and needs immediate action right now, and stick specifically and consistently to the official, properly verified app stores for absolutely everything you choose to install on your device going forward from today onward. Now let's talk about the third category on our list. And this one is honestly the most genuinely surprising for a lot of people once they actually hear it explained properly and completely, because it doesn't actually involve any mysterious, unfamiliar app appearing on your phone at all in the first place. It involves apps you already knowingly installed yourself with your own two hands, ones you use regularly on a daily basis and genuinely trust completely, quietly doing something in the background you never actually agreed to in any meaningful, properly informed way whatsoever. And this is exactly where a real, thoroughly documented investigation becomes genuinely useful for us to understand properly together, because it's not some hypothetical scenario I'm constructing purely for dramatic effect in this video. Confirmed, published, factual investigative reporting from an actual formal investigation conducted by real researchers. A specific weather app with more than 100 million total recorded downloads across its lifetime, making it genuinely one of the single most widely used weather apps across an entire major language region of the world, was directly identified as part of a larger, formal investigation specifically into commercial data broker practices happening behind the scenes, appearing directly inside an actual data set belonging to a US-based data broker company that had been actively compiling and then reselling detailed location information gathered from countless ordinary users. And on just a single day alone in one specific country during this investigation, over 34,000 individual users of that exact weather app had their precise physical location actively tracked, and in some specifically documented cases, tracked down to within a single meter of accuracy, essentially pinpointing their exact physical position throughout the entire day without their genuine awareness. And this wasn't the result of some hidden, sophisticated external hack breaking into anyone's phone from the outside world. This was the app itself, operating entirely exactly as it had been, deliberately designed and intended to operate from day one, quietly collecting and then actively selling this detailed location data to third-party data brokers as an ongoing, fully monetized part of its actual underlying business model. And once regulators in that specific region actually investigated the entire situation directly and thoroughly, they found conclusively that the company had been passing along this extremely sensitive location data without ever obtaining genuinely valid, properly informed consent from its own users at any point in the process. And it was only after that formal regulatory intervention actually took place and forced their hand that the company finally changed its underlying data handling practices going forward from that point on. And I share this specific real-world documented example because it illustrates something genuinely important that goes well beyond the mysterious phantom app phenomenon. We actually started this entire video with, sometimes the real, meaningful privacy risk isn't some brand new, unfamiliar app secretly appearing on your phone at all. It's an app you've already had installed for months or even several years running, one you trust completely and use regularly without ever giving it a second thought or a moment's consideration, quietly operating well outside the reasonable boundaries you'd naturally expect it to respect, simply because you never carefully sat down and reviewed what specific permissions you originally granted it back when you first installed it long ago. And the genuinely reassuring part of this specific story, thankfully, is that the actual practical fix here is remarkably simple to implement yourself. Most modern smartphones already include a fully built-in weather function that comes standard as part of the operating system itself at absolutely no additional cost to you. And that built-in tool is generally just as accurate and reliable as data coming from any dedicated third-party weather app you might currently be using, without requiring any additional permissions whatsoever beyond what your phone's core operating system already fundamentally needs to function normally day to day. So if you're currently using a dedicated third-party weather app specifically on your own phone right now, it's genuinely worth taking just a moment to ask yourself honestly whether you actually need it at all, when your phone likely already includes an equally capable, fully built-in alternative that doesn't come with this exact same kind of third-party data sharing risk quietly attached to it behind the scenes. Now let's talk about the fourth and final category on our list. And this one is specifically tied to Google's own system-level apps that come pre-installed directly on Android phones by default, right out of the box, from the very first moment you power the device on. And this particular category is genuinely worth understanding carefully and precisely because I want to be scrupulously accurate here rather than exaggerating a legitimate, real concern into something it genuinely isn't in reality. Android phones ship with several built-in Google system apps already fully installed from the very first moment you turn the device on for the first time ever. And some of these specific apps are deliberately designed to scan and analyze content stored directly on your device, including your personal photos, your videos, and in certain specific, limited circumstances, message content passing through certain particular apps. And the actual publicly documented purpose behind this ongoing scanning generally centers on legitimate, publicly stated goals that most people would reasonably support, like detecting and helping actively prevent the spread of child sexual abuse material across platforms and services, identifying and proactively warning users about potential scam or phishing content before they unknowingly fall victim to it, and enabling certain genuinely useful smart photo organization and search features that a lot of everyday users genuinely find helpful in their daily life, like being able to search your own personal photo library just by typing a simple description of whatever happens to be in a specific picture. And it's important to be fair and precise here, rather than overstating this particular concern beyond what's actually warranted. This isn't the exact same specific category of concern as a malicious adware app installing itself purely to generate additional ad revenue for some anonymous bad actor somewhere, or a rogue third-party app secretly selling your precise location data to a broker entirely. Without your knowledge or consent, these are legitimate, disclosed system-level features built directly into the Android operating system itself by Google, openly disclosed within Google's own publicly available privacy documentation and terms of service agreements. Even though, realistically and honestly speaking, very few ordinary users have ever actually sat down and carefully read through all of that lengthy documentation in complete detail before simply setting up their brand new phone for the first time and moving on quickly with the rest of their busy day. And the genuinely fair, balanced takeaway here isn't that you should automatically assume Google is secretly, maliciously spying on you personally through these specific built-in system apps. It's simply that you have every reasonable right to actually know precisely what your own device is doing with your personal data by default, and to make a fully informed, deliberate decision for yourself about which specific features you're genuinely comfortable leaving active going forward, and which particular ones you'd rather review more carefully or adjust to properly match your own personal comfort level. You can actually go do this yourself, directly and easily, by going into your phone's privacy settings and specifically reviewing what's often labeled as Google account activity controls, alongside your phone's dedicated photo app permissions and settings, where you can carefully review and adjust exactly what kind of automatic scanning and analysis features are currently active on your specific device, right at this very moment. So now that we've walked through all 4 of these genuinely distinct categories in real detail together, carrier bloatware quietly installing itself in the background over time without your knowledge, adware and fleeceware apps spreading additional unwanted apps as their entire deliberate core business model, trusted apps you already use regularly, quietly overstepping their actual reasonable data boundaries without your fully informed awareness, and Google's own built-in system-level apps performing content, scanning for various publicly stated legitimate purposes. Let's actually talk through the single practical checklist you can genuinely run through on your own phone tonight, right now, to properly identify and deal with all of this at once, rather than trying to tackle each individual issue separately across multiple different sessions, spread out over several days. First, go through your complete app list entirely and methodically, taking your genuine time with it rather than rushing carelessly through the process. And for every single app you honestly don't recognize at all, don't remember installing yourself at any specific point, or genuinely can't clearly explain why, it's currently sitting there, taking up space on your device. Either disable it completely if it turns out to be a protected system app that genuinely can't be fully removed through the normal expected process, or delete it outright entirely if it's simply an ordinary user-installed app instead. Second, if you happen to notice unfamiliar apps specifically reappearing again after you've already carefully deleted them once before, that's a genuinely strong, reliable signal you're actively dealing with Adware rather than experiencing some kind of one-time random fluke, and you should reboot. Tee directly into safe mode right away and thoroughly clean your entire device out from within that fully protected mode, rather than attempting to fix it while everything is still actively running normally in the background. Third, for the apps you do actually recognize clearly and genuinely use regularly in your everyday life, go through their individual permission settings one by one carefully rather than skipping past them quickly, and check specifically what personal data each one currently has access to right now, your precise location, your saved personal contacts, your device's microphone, your device's camera, and ask yourself honestly and specifically whether that particular level of access still genuinely makes logical sense given exactly what the app is actually supposed to do for you on a practical, everyday level of use. Fourth, specifically consider whether any dedicated third-party apps you're currently using regularly on your phone could realistically be replaced entirely by a built-in function your phone's operating system already includes completely for free, whether being a genuinely perfect and extremely common example we've already walked through together in detail, since built-in alternatives frequently accomplish the exact same practical task without requiring the same elevated level of additional third-party data access at all. And fifth, take just a few genuine minutes tonight to actually review your device's built-in privacy and account activity settings directly and carefully, specifically to understand exactly what kind of automatic content scanning or analysis features are currently active by default on your particular phone right now at this moment, and adjust anything you happen to find there to whatever level genuinely matches your own personal comfort and individual preference, rather than simply leaving everything permanently set at whatever default configuration the phone originally shipped with straight from the factory. And I want to be genuinely fair and balanced as we properly wrap this entire video up together, because it would be honestly quite easy to make this entire topic sound far scarier and more alarming than the actual underlying reality genuinely warrants. In most everyday cases, most of the unfamiliar apps that quietly show up on people's phones from time to time ultimately turn out to be relatively harmless carrier bloatware, mildly annoying and space-consuming rather than genuinely dangerous or actively malicious in any serious way. And most of the apps you already knowingly use every single day throughout your normal routine are operating completely legitimately, well within reasonable, generally expected boundaries that most people would consider entirely fair, given what those specific apps actually provide for them in return, the actual, larger point genuinely worth taking away from. This entire discussion isn't that your phone is secretly working actively against you at every single turn of your daily life. It's simply that a small, regular habit of periodically reviewing what's actually